When Michelle offered to let me stay at her house for a while, I remember feeling both grateful and humiliated. Grateful, because my options were thin, a cramped apartment that smelled like mildew or sleeping on my friend Jenna's couch again. And humiliated, because it reminded me just how far I'd drifted from the life I thought I'd built. It wasn't a conversation. Not really. It was more like instructions wrapped in a smile. "You can stay here as long as you help out with the kids," she'd said casually, setting her keys on the kitchen island like Lord of the Manor. "I've got 3 work trips lined up this month, and daycare's basically useless." I nodded before she finished. "Of course. Happy to help. I meant it." I love her kids. And after everything I'd been through, the divorce, the debts, losing the townhouse, I felt like I owed her. She was, after all, offering me a roof and a room for me and my son Daniel, while I tried to piece things back together. But it was the way she said here, like the house was a trophy. Like she wanted me to remember I didn't earn it, that it wasn't mine. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was polished, controlled. The way someone smiles when they're being polite on airplanes, not when they're welcoming their sister into their home. We walked through the house together that day, her doing most of the talking. "You can have the guest house," she said, gesturing like a realtor. "Separate entrance, full kitchenette, bathroom. Better than most people's Airbnb setups, right?" I laughed and agreed because what else could I do? Remind her that years ago I co-signed the loan for the house when her credit was shot? That I helped pay her freaking down payment when she had just started her influencer career? No, that kind of history erodes fast when you're sleeping in someone else's pool house with your kid and $83 in your checking account. She showed me the Smart Lock app on her phone next, casually bragging about the full remote system. I can unlock any door from anywhere. It's all synced through my cloud account. Isn't that cool? Cool, I echoed, even though I could already feel the invisible leash tightening. She paused, turned to me, and said it like a joke, but not really. "This is my house. Just remember that?" Funny thing about that moment, my stomach clenched, but I still smiled. That people-pleaser reflex, a lifetime of trying not to rock the boat. Not with my sister, especially not now. I told myself I was overthinking, that it didn't matter who owned what, that she was doing me a favor and I was just being sensitive. Besides, this was temporary. I'd save up, freelance as much as I could, and be in my own space before the summer. Michelle left me a physical copy of house guidelines printed from her laptop. Neat bullet points like, "No guests after 9 p.m., keep kitchen surfaces clear, please don't rearrange furniture." All under the heading, Shared Gratitude Agreement. With a smiley face. The next morning, she left for her first work trip, uploading a goodbye boomerang with her suitcase and latte at the door. I stood in the guest house, Daniel sketching quietly next to me, and I looked at the keyless entry panel. It flashed blue before turning red. System reset, I guessed. Should have known then. The house might have had more square footage, but I wasn't family anymore. I was help. People always act shocked when you say your own sister screwed you over. Like betrayal can only come from strangers. But sometimes, it's the people closest to you who sharpen the knife with the most care. Before all this, I was just trying to keep my life from falling apart. The divorce took more than just my marriage. It drained me, emotionally, financially. Bit by bit, I sold pieces of myself to keep things afloat. First, it was the retirement account, then the savings. Then the studio I loved working at told me they were cutting costs, and I was one of them. Soon, it was just me, Daniel, and a rapidly shrinking bank balance trying to hold on to a 2-bedroom rental with broken heat, and a landlord who ghosted me for days. The day I finally called Michelle was the same night our power shut off unexpectedly. Daniel had just asked, "Do we have to light candles again?" I nodded and smiled at him like it was a game, but when I went to the bathroom, I locked the door and cried. That ugly, silent, sink-to-your-knees kind of cry. My pride had already been bleeding out. I didn't care anymore. I just needed help. Michelle sounded delighted when she picked up. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" she asked. "You and Daniel can stay in the guest house. It's all yours until you're back on your feet." Her voice had that warm Instagram filter glow to it. I'll admit it, I felt relief, maybe even gratitude. I'd always been the one who helped her, not the other way around. It felt weird, but slightly comforting, to hear her offer something in return. But here's what Michelle chooses to forget. That house she feels so triumphant about? The one she loves to call hers, with the marble backsplash and the curved staircase, was never entirely hers to begin with. Years ago, when she was trying to buy her dream home to match the image she was curating on social media, her credit was in the toilet. She came to me crying, saying, "I'll never become anything if I can't get this house. The bank won't approve me alone. I need you." I was doing well back then, dual income, a solid cushion. I still believed in people keeping their word, especially family. So I said yes. I co-signed the mortgage. I lent her money for the down payment. Our names were both on the guest house deed as a way to protect the investment, her words. At the time, I never thought she'd use it as a cage later. She promised to pay me back in full. She paid me back half. Then she got engaged, became obsessed with image and lifestyle influencer deals, and just conveniently stopped acknowledging the arrangement. I didn't push it. I was busy surviving my own storm and didn't think she'd rewrite history on me. But years later, when I showed up at her door desperate and broken, she didn't mention a thing about that past. All she said was, "You can stay, but no drama." The part that messes with your head is how language gets used as a mask. Kindness becomes coded with rules. Help gets weaponized with reminders. And eventually, having a place to sleep starts to feel like you're trespassing. I didn't come here expecting to take anything. I didn't want to live in her glossy world of curated countertops and chore charts. I just wanted stability for my son. A place where he didn't have to worry about candles or eviction notices. But the minute I walked into that guest house, I felt it. That subtle, choking sense of debt. The unspoken score Michelle kept in her smile. What she forgot, or pretended to forget, is that I made that guest house possible. That without me, she wouldn't be standing in her smart home temple pretending to be generous. So when she jokes now and says, "Make sure to clean up the guest house," it's my property after all, I don't correct her. Not yet, but I haven't forgotten the paperwork, and one day neither will she. The morning Michelle left for her work retreat, she wore one of those sleek, wrinkle-free travel outfits you only see in airport ads. Linen trench coat draped perfectly over a designer jumpsuit. Neutral tones, effortless but expensive. She kissed the kids on the forehead, gave me an air hug, and wheeled her jewel-toned suitcase through the foyer, narrating the moment into her phone for a story post. "Mommy's off to empower women in business," she cooed, then winked my way. "You've got everything under control, right? You're a natural," and then just like that, she was gone. Left behind were her two kids, Max, age 5, and Lily, age 7, plus my son Daniel, who hadn't had a single morning to himself since we moved into this arrangement. I didn't complain, though. I got up early every day to make pancakes, pack lunch boxes, comb tangled hair, and wrangle 3 wildly different personalities into properly labeled backpacks. Michelle had left a typed hour-by-hour schedule: school drop-off times, snack instructions, approved shows, bedtime goals. Half of it was unnecessary, and the other half was pure micromanagement. But I still followed it. I wanted to keep things smooth. The kids didn't ask for any of this, but what really started eating at me weren't the tasks. I've wiped noses and tied shoes my whole life. Motherhood doesn't scare me. It was the tone of her messages. She checked in constantly, but never to say thank you. One afternoon, I got a text that read, "Please don't let the kids snack on the couch. That velvet's imported." Later that night, "Penny, I'd prefer you didn't use the main kitchen unless it's an emergency. I stocked the mini fridge for your stay," the main kitchen, in a house I helped buy. Now off limits, then came the wine fridge comment. "Hey, totally minor, but the wine fridge isn't communal." Pecs! As if I'd ever been the kind to crack open her overpriced rosé while folding laundry. Still, it didn't stop her from treating me like some background extra in her life, a hired nanny who should know her place. I told myself to breathe, to finish the week with grace, just for the kids. But grace doesn't come easy when you're constantly being reminded you're a guest in a house you helped build. Michelle's voice echoed even from miles away. Pre-recorded, pixelated, and always just slightly condescending. She started sending me photos of Instagram-perfect resort meals with captions like, "Recharge is essential. Moms, fill your own cup." Meanwhile, I was scrubbing marker off the guesthouse floor, microwaving dino nuggets, and soothing Max's meltdown over a lost Lego. I posted nothing, and yet, the real insult wasn't just her tone. It was that she didn't acknowledge, not once, the full picture. That I was juggling 3 kids solo, organizing carpools, helping with homework, and doing double laundry loads, all while trying to squeeze in a couple freelancing gigs late at night to keep us afloat. Michelle didn't see that, or maybe she chose not to. To her, I was lucky. Lucky to have a roof, lucky to be trusted with her children, lucky to warm up soup in her glorified guest suite with a mini microwave that buzzed like a dying bee. There was a moment, on Thursday night, when all 3 kids finally fell asleep. I stood in the main kitchen, trying to quietly grab a real glass for water. I passed the wine fridge. I hesitated. Considered it. Just for a second, I opened it. Not to drink, just to make a point to myself. That I could. That I didn't need her notes or permission or emoji-filled reminders about who owned what. Behind the tinted glass, rows of untouched bottles lined the shelves like silent guards. I shut the door gently and walked out, carrying my glass of water like it was something sacred. Back in the guest house, I found another message waiting. "Hey, not sure why kitchen lights were on tonight. Motion sensors, you know. Just FYI, hope all's good." It was more than a message. It was a reminder she still watched, still tracked, still owned the narrative. I put my phone down, swallowed my temper, reminded myself, one more day. But somewhere deep in me, something shifted. Something woke up. I wasn't just the help, and I wasn't lucky. She'd just forgotten who she was really talking to, and soon I'd remind her. It started as just another tedious task Michelle had left me. Sort the unopened mail, piling up in the office. Her words, not mine. I hadn't stepped foot in her little makeshift CEO HQ since we moved in. It was a temple to her curated life. Gold-accented pens, a branded vision board, an acrylic sign that read "Boss Energy Only." I grabbed the overflowing basket by the door, sat cross-legged on her velvet office rug, and began shuffling through a mountain of ads, expired coupons, and unopened Amazon returns. At the very bottom, tucked between an old Glamour magazine and a manila USPS folder that looked barely sealed, was something thick and familiar, cream-colored paper. Slightly embossed edges. I knew that paper stock. I pulled it out carefully. My stomach dropped. County recorder's office. Property transfer documents, loan docs, mortgage information. And there, about halfway through the stack, in bold as day, my name, Penelope Hartwell, grantee, co-contributor, right there on the original deed transfer document for the property. I read it again and again. My name hadn't been scratched out, retracted, or even edited. It had just been ignored, conveniently left out of every conversation we'd had in the past 5 years about her house. I sat perfectly still, the sounds of cartoons barely humming from the guest house next door. The kids were coloring. It was quiet enough to hear my own breath. That house was never fully hers, never had been. I remembered the afternoon I signed those documents like it was yesterday. Michelle had called me in tears standing on the curb in front of the for sale sign. "They won't approve me alone," she'd sobbed. "Pen, I've put everything I have into this. I need your help. I swear I'll pay you back." I'd been doing well back then. Dual income, newly promoted. I had savings and soft spots for my little sister's dreams. She said it was just to show the bank she had backup, that my name was a formality so she could close in time. I believed her. But as time passed, repayment turned into, "You know I'll cover you when I get that sponsorship," followed by, "It's all mixed in now, hard to track who paid for what," and then eventually, "Well, I mean, it's my house." Everyone knows that. Like repetition could rewrite paperwork. I never fought her on it. Maybe because I didn't want to make waves. Maybe because I loved her, and family was supposed to mean something. Maybe because I thought I didn't need to prove what I already knew, until now. Holding that folder in my hands, it all hit differently. This wasn't just proof. It was power. It was the key to unraveling the story she'd built. The one where she was the hero, the savior, the self-made homeowner helping her poor sister out of charity. And all while she micromanaged my meals, tracked my movements, made offhanded remarks about people who don't plan for emergencies. She'd turned me into the desperate one. The dependent. Just someone she let stay here, as long as I was useful. But if I still legally held claim to the guest house, if the systems, the locks, and the sensors were installed on property listed in both our names, then I wasn't trespassing. I wasn't borrowing. I was staying in part of what was already mine. No wonder she never mentioned it. She probably assumed I'd forgotten, or was too proud to push back. But seeing my name there, in ink, on record, snapped something in me. All this time I'd been playing along, folding laundry and dodging guilt trip texts like some penitent squatter, when in reality, I had leverage. Real, legal leverage. Carefully, I returned the folder to the bottom of the pile, under the expired coupon book, just as I found it. Only this time, I smiled. Let her think I was still grateful. Let her text me one more emoji-studded list of rules, because now I knew something she didn't think I remembered. And when the time was right, I was going to make that truth impossible for her to ignore. I didn't expect balloons or gifts or anything with glitter. I didn't even expect cake, but I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd at least say the words. I'd woken up that morning early, just like every other day that week. Made breakfast, packed lunches, and ironed Lily's favorite sparkly jacket because it was spa day at her school. I even taped a lunchbox note to Max's thermos, like Michelle used to do before she got too busy branding herself as authentically untouchable. It was my birthday, but everyone needed things, so I gave. It wasn't until 11 a.m. when it really hit me. No text, no call. Not even a fake generic message with a confetti emoji to try. Instead, what I got was a notification that Michelle had posted a story. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. There she was, reclined at some boutique wine spa, cucumbers over her eyes, the caption glowing in soft script. Finally unplugging. Deserved. Deserved. By noon, I'd finished 4 loads of laundry and vacuumed the guest house. I held on to the idea that maybe she was just waiting until the kids got home. That maybe she'd planned something small, knowing I didn't like big scenes. But at school pickup, Lily climbed into the back seat, her little face proud and wide-eyed. She clutched a glitter-covered card with tiny, awkward handwriting. "Auntie, we made these. Mommy said we were throwing you a little party for being the best babysitter ever. Babysitter." I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled at her like it didn't hit me like a slap. Max chimed in from behind. "Yeah, Mommy said she arranged everything. We had cookies I made with them, the night before." When we got home, Lily handed me a crumpled card with stickers and said, "Mommy told us you'd like this, but don't tell her I gave it early." Inside the folded construction paper were 3 words written in bubble letters, "Happy Helper Day." I should have laughed. Should have clapped and hugged them tight. And I did. I hugged them fiercely, because they're kids, and they don't know better. They only know what they're told. But my smile cracked as soon as I stepped out of their sight. I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my own reflection. 42. That's how old I turned that day. 42, with no house of my own, no partner, no celebration. A glorified chauffeur in a home that used to partially belong to me, now treated like a tenant with a key code and chore list. At 6:13 p.m., while I was finishing dinner, Michelle FaceTimed. She was wrapped in a beige robe, skin glowing, someone pouring her a 3rd glass of wine in the background. "Tell my babies I love them," she cooed. Then added, "Oh, and can you clean my bathroom before I get back? There's some gunk on the shower tile that's stressing me out." She didn't pause. Didn't notice the frozen stare I shot at the screen. "Hey," she said, blinking. "Are you okay?" I swallowed hard. I'm fine. You sure? You look a little tired. I am. Long day, she gave a tight smile. I bet. You're a lifesaver this week. Seriously. I owe you a latte or something. Then she hung up. I stood there for a moment in the kitchen, spoon still in my hand, dinner simmering quietly behind me. My fingers tightened around the phone until it trembled, not because she forgot, but because she knew and didn't care. She'd remembered enough to spin it for her kids, enough to reap whatever praise they gave her for throwing a little celebration for the caretaker, but not enough to speak to me like a human being who once helped her build this life, not enough to stop, dehumanizing me under the polished disguise of gratitude. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. Instead, I walked to her bedroom, knowing exactly where she kept her scent diffusers and folded towels, and I didn't touch a damn thing. The room stayed messy. The tiles stayed gunky. Let her come back to her own crumbs. Let her clean her own throne. I knew in that moment she wasn't going to change, but I could, and quietly, methodically, I began to plan. Because if kindness meant servitude to her, then silence would be my rebellion. By Monday, something inside me had shifted. It wasn't anger anymore. Not the hot, burning kind that makes you slam doors or cry into pillows. No, this was colder, quieter. The kind of anger that sits at the base of your spine and starts whispering ideas. And I listened. It started with her brag. A throwaway comment she made a few weeks back when she was showing off her smart home setup to a group of her influencer friends on Zoom. She's a total control freak, one of them joked, pointing to Michelle, and Michelle smirked. Please, I built this place to run itself while I'm away. Every security function runs through my phone. Facial recognition, remote lock overrides. I could freeze my front gate from Bali if I wanted. Then, to me, like it was an inside joke. Remember? You helped me set all that up when I was still technologically helpless. That last part stuck, because she was right. Years ago, when she first moved in, I'd helped her connect the home automation hub, installed the subrouter myself, signed up for the free trial of her smart lock service using my email, so she didn't have to bother creating a password. Back then, it was easier to do things for her than to argue. But sitting in the guest house that night, with Daniel asleep and the residue of humiliation still swirling in my gut, I decided to check if my credentials still worked. I opened the login page, typed in my email, hit forgot password. A minute later, a recovery message hit my inbox. I followed the link. Reset. Logged in, and just like that, I was inside. Not the guest account. Not limited access, full admin privileges. Michelle, being Michelle, had never updated the settings. The system still used the default structure we set up during one of our sister bonding weekends, back when she pretended we were co-founders of something meaningful. I stared at the dashboard, camera views, opening and closing logs, cloud footage archives, smart codes, room access schedules, guest zone controls, gate locks, facial detection libraries, and at the center of it all, the authority to control, assign or delete permissions. I didn't touch anything. Not yet. Instead, I started small, quiet, strategic. Set up a log tracker that mirrored the system's activity history to a spreadsheet that I could check anytime. I created a silent subprofile under my name, then flagged certain alerts so that any time Michelle changed something, I'd know. For the next 2 days, I buried myself in watching patterns. Her ring schedules, her auto-on lighting scripts, the way she unlocked the front door at exactly 5:52 p.m. each day after her juice bar class, and left do not disturb mode on the guest house, thermostat every night by 9. I learned how her digital brain worked, how her illusion of control made her sloppy. She had no idea I was watching. No clue that every time she smug texted me from the spa to turn down the AC to save power, I could see which rooms she was last in. That I could tell when she checked the cameras to make sure I wasn't in her kitchen again. The smart home system was never just about security for Michelle. It was a power trip. A Rubik's Cube of micromanagement masked as modern tech. She used the interface like a queen overseeing her kingdom. one beeping notification at a time. But now, I knew the code, and I wasn't just the help, I was the architect. Every evening, after the dinner rush, after 3 kids were finally tucked into bed, I poured myself tea and spent a quiet hour inside her command center, studying her digital behavior like it was a language. I didn't need to change anything yet. The beauty of real control is patience. Michelle built this house like a stage. She was center spotlight, forever applauded. Everyone else, background players. But what she failed to realize was, who'd built the lighting system? I smiled, logged out and shut the laptop. I wasn't ready to end the show, just slowly rewriting the script. Michelle returned from her retreat exactly as I expected, glowing, smug, and 20% more condescending than when she left. Her tan was fake, her nails freshly glazed in some shade called caviar calm, and the air in the house shifted the minute the front door closed behind her. "Well," she said, dropping her designer luggage in the middle of the tile floor, "I'm back to reality." She glanced around once, lips pursed as if inspecting her kingdom. Things looked mostly okay, she said later that afternoon, standing in the kitchen with a passive-aggressive smile. "Just one mug left out on the counter. Apparently the robots can't train you and the kids." I didn't respond right away. I was still folding Max's laundry, already exhausted from the school pickup, snack, and meltdown trifecta. Then, she pulled out the envelope. "And just so we stay balanced," she added, handing me a crisp white sheet with a header that read, "June Utilities Breakdown." It was a bill. For water, electric, and, absurdly, minor wear and tear on the guest bathroom rug. Total, $182.43, split fairly between residents. I stared at it for a beat too long. She chuckled. "You know, when people live beyond their means, stuff piles up. I know things have been rough for you, but you can't expect everyone else to cover everything. Pen. That nickname still sounded like sugar being stirred into poison when she said it. That's when she leaned against the island, swirling a coconut water bottle like it was champagne, and delivered her final insult with all the performance of a woman auditioning for a rebooted Real Housewives episode. "You'll babysit," she said lightly, like this was Tuesday afternoon small talk, in the house I paid for. "Or get out. No hard feelings," she smiled. Took a sip, like she didn't just shatter something I'd been clutching way too quietly for weeks. It was the kind of moment where, years ago, I would have tried to reason with her. I would have explained that I wasn't freeloading, that I wasn't beneath her, that I wasn't weak just because life had gutted me. But now I just smiled back, tightly, politely, like I hadn't already logged back into the smart home system last night and watched her security permissions blink, unknowingly, right beneath my fingertips. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the force of holding everything inside. She turned her back, humming to herself, as if brushing me off was just a casual housekeeping update. I looked at the bill again, at the bold numbers that pretended a rug and some running water equaled the favor of raising her children, cleaning up her messes, and then I folded the paper in half, slid it into my pocket, and said calmly, "Got it. That's all." Not one raised voice. Not one plea. Not even a sarcastic reply. Something stronger than indignation had settled inside me. Clarity. Let her think I'd swallowed it. That I'd accepted her reins. That she was somehow owed obedience in exchange for her fake benevolence. She didn't know the paperwork still existed. Didn't know how fast I could revoke her control with 3 swipes on my screen. Didn't know that the woman folding Max's pajamas at the kitchen table had more power than she'd bothered to consider. She'd made the mistake of confusing silence for surrender. And that was the last slap I needed before everything started clicking into place. From here on out, I didn't need to correct her lies, or tug at whatever thread of compassion she used to fake when we were kids. Michelle had drawn her line in the sand. Now she'd see what happened when I crossed it. The Friday she went out for her date night, Michelle barely looked at me as she floated down the hallway all dressed up, her heels clicking like punctuation marks to a sentence she thought only she could write. "Pizza's in the freezer. Keep them off screens longer than 30 minutes. And don't forget, no peanuts for Max," she called, grabbing her designer clutch. I've got it, I said, without even turning, my voice even steady. She rolled her eyes like I was an employee clocking in late, then added over her shoulder, "You're the best. Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you." And then she was gone, calling over her shoulder something about not waiting up before the front door clicked shut. I waited 5 minutes, watched through the side window as she waved to the Uber Black from her driveway like a celebrity between takes. Then I walked to my laptop, opened it, and logged in. Smart Connect Central, home admin interface. There it was, the shell of her kingdom. Brewed in smugness, coded in convenience, all of it perched delicately on a system I co-built. The weight of months of insult and overlooked kindness settled on me like a second skin. But tonight I didn't carry it. I used it first. Gate codes, outdated, predictable, still. Set to her birthday, which used to be mine to remember but now just hung on walls in. Picture frames captioned, "Built this life." Myself. I changed both entrance and delivery access codes. New ones randomized, known only by me, next voice profiles. I archived hers, digitally, softly, without a whisper. Now unlock front door and open garage wouldn't register her voice anymore. If she tried, the AI would simply chirp, "Access not recognized." Then came the guest list, heavy with temporary codes issued to masseuses, stylists, a few wellness partners. I cleared them all. Reset the permissions. The house now only responded to 4 people, the kids, Daniel, and me. Lastly, the one move she never would have imagined, the HOA portal. Because Michelle always operated like image was reality. But the online HOA account, the one she used to submit modern landscaping plans and log community tax rebates, listed owner profiles. And thanks to the original deed, my name wasn't just allowed there, it belonged there. I logged in using the email alias she'd set years ago when I handled her applications. Took less than a minute to reset the password and update the ownership display from primary property owner, Michelle Hartwell, to joint ownership, Michelle Hartwell and Penelope Hartwell, no fanfare. No flashing confirmations, just 2 names, side by side, where they were always meant to be, a digital whisper of truth. Quiet enough to be ignored, loud enough to stand up in court if it came to that. The last thing I did was activate motion notifications. Every door, every lock, every entry zone. Not for control, for clarity. I didn't need to bar her out. I just needed her to realize, in real time, that I wasn't invisible anymore. By the time the kids were asleep and I was sipping lukewarm tea in the guest house, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front courtyard camera. 9:42 p.m. Voice command failed. Front door. Michelle Hartwell. Access not recognized. I watched a still frame pop up. My sister, slightly tipsy, crouching in front of her own door, holding her phone up, squinting, then tapping, then frowning. I imagined her voice rising an octave. "Open the door!" The AI chirping blankly in return. "Sorry, access not recognized." She tried again at the garage. Same result. I didn't move. I just sat back and watched the interface refresh, the house so controlled, so carefully curated now. Just silent, still, neutral, like me. My phone lit up. Incoming call. Michelle. I declined it. 3 minutes later, a message. "Hey, weird glitch. Can you let me in? This is super annoying. LOL. I didn't respond. Another call. Another decline. This wasn't war. This wasn't a tantrum. This was chess. Moves made in silence. Deliberation over destruction. Just enough confusion to dislodge her comfort. Just enough consequence to remind her that the hand she spent so long pretending didn't exist. Had never let go of the other side of the scale. I looked at the screen once more, then closed the laptop. Let her knock tonight, let her wonder. I wasn't locking her out. Not really. I was just finally living in the half of the house she'd long forgotten was mine. At 10:04 p.m. sharp, the motion sensor at the front door sent out its chime. I saw her before she knocked, caught in the grainy glow of the porch light. her platform heels in one hand, tote bag slipping off her shoulder, hair slightly wine-tossed from whatever overpriced patio she'd just left. Her face hovered expectantly toward the smart lock panel like it owed her something. She said it once, with a confident smile. "Open door. Michelle Hartwell." Nothing. She frowned, leaned in closer, and repeated it slowly, like the system was hard of hearing. "Open. Door. Michelle Hartwell." Still nothing. The porch light flickered, motion confirmed, but the door blinked red. From inside, I sat cross-legged in the guest house, laptop open beside me, warm tea in hand, watching the monitor like it was the world's most anticlimactic movie. Except to me it was perfect, quiet, satisfying, real. She knocked once, then again. A polite knock the first time, annoyed the second. At 10:06, the gate camera blinked. Secondary fail on her phone's Bluetooth unlock attempt. I'd already disabled her preset earlier that evening. Not erased, just paused. Like me. Still here, just not playing the part she assigned anymore. Then came the call. I let it ring twice before answering, my tone calm and friendly in the way only someone with full control can be. "Everything okay, Michelle?" Her voice came through jagged and sharp, pure performative outrage tangled with entitlement. Yeah, no, it's not. The door's not recognizing me for some reason. What did you do to the system? Are you inside? Let me in. I'm in the guest house, I said evenly. But the system's functioning exactly as it should. She let out a bitter laugh. Okay, funny. You made your point. What, is this over the wine fridge again? No, I said, voice still calm. This is about access control. Access to my house? Our property, I corrected gently. Or did you forget the guest house deed lists, both of us? There was silence on her end. Just the wind brushing against the microphone and her breath catching. I let it hang for a second before continuing. I updated the HOA profile tonight. Legally, I'm reflected as a joint owner of the guest house and its integrated systems. Pen, this isn't funny. You're actually breaking the law right now. This is illegal. Actually, I said, already pulling up the digital document in front of me for reference. Per Section 8903 of the HOA's Smart Property Policy, any listed owner has equal right to manage or access jointly functional systems. So no, Michelle, I'm not breaking the law. You can't just lock me out. This is my home. No, I replied, still steady. This is the home I helped buy. The one I've taken care of while you bragged on social media about doing it all on your own. The one where you left your kids with me for a week while you told strangers you were just trying to recharge from stress. I don't do this, she said, voice faltering now. She was realizing it. The shift. The end of the myth she'd built around herself. I'm not keeping you out, I clarified. Just following the guest permissions you set up. You made the rules, remember? She was fully shouting now, the way people do when they still think volume equals control. I swear to God you'll regret this. I've been nothing but generous. I cut in. I'm just following house rules, I said quietly. Respect the system you paid for. Silence. Then the call dropped. I watched through the feed as she jammed the code in one more time. Wrong. Her emotions blazed across her face. Disbelief. Humiliation, then something worse. Uncertainty. The system no longer obeyed her. The house she used like armor didn't bow on demand anymore. Not tonight. A car rolled up minutes later. Same driver as earlier. She opened the back door without looking back at the camera and slipped in. The car pulled away. I sat there long after, staring at the door she could no longer open, sipping my tea. This wasn't about locking her out of a building. It was about unlocking something in me, the part that always thought dignity meant silence, that letting things go made me noble, that family meant forgiveness no matter what. But now, I understood, family doesn't mean servitude. Forgiveness doesn't mean surrender. And respect? Respect's not given. It's mirrored. And finally, mine stared back at me. By morning, she was crashing at her boyfriend's condo. The same one she pretended not to sleep at because the lighting was bad for skincare. Apparently, the lighting was fine now. At 7:03 a.m., I got a barrage of texts, one after another, like she'd been scripting them during her ride home. You humiliated me. You locked me out of my own house like a criminal. You've seriously lost it. Pen, I was trying to help you. Then came the big one. Longer than the others. The one she wanted to sting. You're living in my charity and acting like you're owed something. Babysitting isn't ownership. Grow up. Nobody forced you to stay here. You're turning into mom. Bitter, dramatic, and resentful. I stared at the screen, unmoved. 3 deep breaths. No reply. I set my phone down. 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. New notification, family group chat. Hartwell weekends. Of course. She was taking it public. I opened it slowly, already knowing the tone. Michelle had written a vague but pointed message full of performative restraint. Not looking for drama, but I'm really disappointed that someone I've welcomed into my home would suddenly act like a hostile tenant. Family deserves better. It was quiet for a moment. Then the comments began. Cousin Nina, clueless as ever. Wait, what? Who's staying with who? Aunt Carol chimed in. Textbook passive aggression. Woo. Families always fall apart over houses. Sad. And then Uncle Rick brought the hammer. Honestly, Pen, if Michelle let you stay there, maybe don't rock the boat. She's been through a lot too. I laughed. Out loud. Alone. So that's how she wanted to play it. I didn't argue. Didn't plead my case. Instead, I attached 3 PDFs to the chat. No captions. No explanations. Just the scanned deed with my name. The Smart Hub registration email from my inbox. And the shared owner edit timestamp on the HOA portal, showing Michelle's own digital signature approving me years ago. I hit send. What the best kind of silence is the kind that rolls, and when the truth hits like cold water. The chat quieted, immediately. Not a single reply. Not one emoji. Michelle didn't message again that morning, but by noon, my phone buzzed quietly with a different kind of tone. Hey, I didn't realize that stuff was still on file. I wish you'd just talk to me instead of going nuclear. Maybe we come up with something fair. Then finally, I shouldn't have said some of the things I said. I was just upset. I stared at the string of texts, not with satisfaction, but peace. This wasn't triumph, not like the movies. It was clarity, vindication. I replied once. Boundaries aren't betrayal. You called it generosity. I called it survival. Maybe don't offer help with strings and expect silence in return. She left me on read, and that was fine, because I wasn't waiting for her approval anymore. Or forgiveness, or family group chats full of double standards. She could spin it however she wanted, but the receipts didn't lie, and I had finally stopped borrowing someone else's truth. 1 month later, I stood in the lobby of my new condo building, holding a key with my name on it. No guest code, no shared access, just a clean brushed metal key that opened a door I paid for. The elevator dinged softly, and when I stepped onto the hardwood floors of my 1-bedroom unit, sunlight poured in through the bay window like it was waiting for me. It wasn't massive. It wasn't some architectural marvel, but it was mine. Every inch earned through sleepless nights of freelance deadlines, last-minute rush jobs, and teaching myself how to design e-commerce stores again. I'd been invisible long enough. Now I was getting paid to be seen. Daniel loved the place, said it smelled like a fresh start, which nearly made me cry into my grocery bags. Within days of moving in, I felt like I could breathe deeper, like my body no longer flinched every time my phone buzzed with one of Michelle's friendly reminders. Because by then, those had stopped altogether. Well, most of them. After the smart home incident and the group chat silence, Michelle kept her distance. I heard through the grapevine she told people I'd misinterpreted some things, and that the guest house agreement had gotten messy. But beneath the forced casualness, I could feel it. The panic in her tone when the silence didn't fold into apology. When I didn't reach out first. When I didn't beg to come back or to be forgiven. And then, about 3 weeks after my move, I got a text. We should probably talk about the property situation. It's just weird now. I waited a day before replying. Okay, I've already contacted a real estate attorney. I'm moving to sell my half. Suddenly the tone changed. Wait, Pen? Can we not make it litigious? Why would you ever sell it to someone else? Especially someone I don't know? I'll buy your half. Just send me the number. So I did. Full market value. Adjusted upward, thanks to renovations and recent comps in the neighborhood. I'd done my research. Fair was fair. She ghosted for 2 days, then called. Hey, she started slowly, trying to slip back into that sweet, thin voice she used when she needed something. That number you gave me. It's kind of steep, don't you think? I'm getting a quote from Gary. I had it professionally appraised. I interrupted. A small silence. Then she said the part that she'd been pushing toward the whole time. Can't you just, I don't know, cut me a family deal? I took a moment before replying. You mean like the one you gave me? When you charged me rent, handed me chore schedules, and texted me bills, all while acting like I'd crashed your life uninvited? No, she tried to backtrack. That wasn't, I was helping. You paid for the peace of feeling powerful, I said. I paid for your house. We paid for your image. Another silence. A deeper one this time. I'm not selling it at a discount, Michelle. You can buy it at the current rate, or I can sell my share to a law firm that handles fractional property disputes. Apparently demands high for smart home-enabled guest houses tied to influencer properties. Her voice cracked then. The begging was there, under the surface, but the words wouldn't come out. She ended the call. 3 days later, the deposit hit my account. Full amount. No note. No apology, just a transaction. I signed the final transfer agreement with a lawyer on the phone and a quiet satisfaction blooming in my chest. I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't post about it. Didn't subtweet. Didn't mass text the family chat Michelle. Could say whatever she wanted. But I had walked. Into that house with guilt in one hand and debt in the other. I walked away with ownership, with clarity, with money I'd used to build something that wasn't tethered to her shadow. That night, I sat in my new living room, the windows open, Daniel building blanket forts on the couch. We were eating frozen pizza on paper plates, a small celebration. Just the two of us. Across from me sat a thin manila envelope, the deposit confirmation, the title transfer, and most satisfying of all, the voided joint ownership document with Michelle's Sharpie signature scrawled next to mine, now legally meaningless. I didn't frame it. I just filed it away, because some receipts don't need to hang on walls. They live in your peace. The light in my new place hits different in the morning. There's no clicking of designer heels on tile, no aggressive espresso machine ripping through silence, no forced small talk over breakfast or subtle sighs when I forget to wipe the counters exactly how someone else prefers. Just peace. Daniel laughs from the living room. Something about a cereal giveaway he's trying to explain to me for the 3rd time. I half listen, half smile, and let the sound of his voice fill the space we've started calling ours. It's smaller than where we used to be, sure. But it's free, full of candles that smell like calm and faint music drifting from a playlist I chose all by myself. I breathe a little deeper every morning now. No more shared Wi-Fi passwords. No more smart home surveillance, no whispered rules, no walking on the metaphorical eggshells layered across her marble floors. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been clenching every muscle in my body, waiting for the next text, the next sugar-coated demand. But when it stopped, when the beeping notifications and curated guilt trips went quiet, I began relearning the shape of my own thoughts. She'd messaged me one last time, a few days ago. Her voice had tried to sound soft through text, like she still believed she held the higher ground. Don't make me the bad guy. Family helps each other. But the thing is, I did help. I paid. I cooked. I kept her kids safe. I took every dig, every backhanded thank you, every eye roll she delivered like I was born to serve. And still, she told everyone I was the problem. So no, I didn't reply. Not because I held a grudge. That part had burned itself to ash and scattered a long time ago. But because some peace is earned in silence. Some closure doesn't come with a loud confrontation. It arrives in quiet mornings like this one, where the tea is hot, my son's voice is loud, and no one considers me a tenant in my own story. I used to think walking away without explaining myself was weak. That silence meant surrender. But standing still in the face of manipulation and not reacting, that's strength. That's growth. I light a candle and sit near the window. It flickers low and soft, soaking into the walls like warmth long overdue. Behind the calm is everything I left behind. The games, the guilt, the need to shrink myself to be tolerable. I don't miss the fridge labels. I don't miss the family group chat commentary. I don't miss checking the air temp before stepping out, wondering if my shoes were quiet enough not to wake the judgment on the other side of the wall. Michelle can tell whatever story she wants. Maybe in her version, I was the chaotic one, the emotional one. The rebellious sister who refused to be managed. Let her. It doesn't change the truth. The house she weaponized became the house I walked out of with both my head high and my equity intact, and I'll never apologize for saving myself. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Michelle sits on my lock screen. I don't open it. I don't need to. Because when you finally build a life that isn't auditioning for someone else's approval, every unopened message is its own tiny freedom. I take a sip of my tea, orange peel and honey. And then I go right back to living.